And hopefully we can communicate now with the mentally ill. So just some quick things here, just some quick ones. Mental illness alone does not increase the risk of violence. But when mental illness is combined with other risk factors such as substance abuse, it does increase the risk of violence. So just because a person has a mental illness doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be violent, but it's the other things. So a lot of them could be on medication or maybe on medication that's going to affect them. The highest risk for violence was found in those who had mental illness and a substance abuse problem combined with a history of violence. And research shows that this group have 10 times the risk of violence than those who would had a mental illness. So here are some communication strategies. Listen by validating how a person feels. So redirect the conversation from discussion of events to talking about feelings and emotions. An example here, John, it sounds like you've got a lot of feelings about this. That makes sense to me. That validates it. Sounds like you're really angry about this. That makes a lot of sense. You're agreeing with them. Ask if events have triggered memories of other situations or events. So memories may provoke painful emotions and negative behaviors, withdrawal, avoidance, hypervigilance, as a way to cope with these events. So an example here is, John, have you found yourself thinking about things from the past, or have you been in a similar situation before? Great questions to ask. Like, imagine asking that. Have you been in a situation like this before? It just calms the person out. It just means that they're going to go from aggression to less aggression. Avoid clinical diagnosis and pathological language. You may see symptoms of clinical issues such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, but you need to steer away from that language. So an example is, instead of saying that's just your depression speaking, you can say things like those kinds of feelings are normal. Communicate person to person rather than expert to victim. Use straightforward terms. Foster rapport and trust by expressing genuine concerns rather than the expert position of treating them as a victim of an event. So an example of this is a really difficult time. I've been wondering how this has affected you, or how have you been coping with all of this? Great questions to ask. A couple more. Foster resilience. A strength-based approach can promote long-term recovery by helping patients, clients to adapt to traumatic events. So the path to resilience varies from person to person. So a good example of this is, I've seen you get through a lot of hard times. I'm sure we can figure this one out too. Encourage a customer to minimize their exposure to media coverage. This is always good. You can do this with kids too. Extensive media coverage can exacerbate negative emotions and serve as constant reminders of what's happened. Place media coverage into context and remind them that there are also positive things occurring in the world. So you could say things like, I wonder if you and the kids could take a break from all the TV news. How about we turn off the TV and we do some activity with them tonight? Yeah, that sort of stuff. Finally, understand your comfort level with dealing with violent and traumatic events. Our own emotions can be triggered by the work that you do. Get help from co-workers. I'm sure you have like an EAP that will help you, employee assistance program, or other practitioners to talk through your responses. Avoid discussing the situation, staff opinions, or interpretations of the events in the presence of the public. This can inflame and evoke conflict. If you can, find a trusted co-worker to share your feelings with, away from customer contact areas. This is always a good thing to do. If you've got a good mate, good friend, you can let it all out with them. Let whatever it is, how you react and cope to situations, let it out. I have a very good friend of mine, Di, who's an ex-paramedic, and boy, do we sit down and we have some good conversations. And that's what it's about sometimes. Just, it frustrates me. And then we can just talk about it. Just relax, slow down, breathe. Take it easy. Enjoy life and smile if you can. Sam writes, I used to work in healthcare, and we had a patient who was struggling to manage his health conditions. He was living with very avid altered realities, as we constantly were speaking with, as we constantly speaking with friends when no one was there. He would get upset when we could hear them and he'd feel like he was failing himself. So our phrases needed to be, I can't seem to understand what your friends are saying. I'm not sure why. But if you repeated it to me, we could have a conversation together. That's good, Sam. That is good. Yeah, I can't seem to understand what your friend is saying. There's a bit of that schizophrenic psychosis thing going on. And yeah, talking that out. I think that's great. Well said there. There's another one above that. What about, hi, Gerald, I sent a message to the others. All right. What about the other end of the spectrum with patrons that come in needing some emotional support? Sometimes there are patrons that visit the library with PTSD or other emotional issues like grief. I find it hard to empathize with them without sounding cold. I'm not a therapist. I feel awkward trying to talk to them about the issues. I'm a librarian and I don't have a lot of experience with these hard issues. That's your answer. That's your answer. You could say things like, Gerald, I really thank you for opening up and talking to me about some of these issues. I'm not experienced in dealing with these issues. I wonder if it's okay if I see if I can help find you someone, or if there's someone that I can help you talk to. You just got to be honest with them. You really just have to be honest with that person, but also thank them. I really thank you for coming to me and talking to me about this issue. I'm feeling awkward and I'm out of my depths. I don't know how to respond to you. That's it. And I think some of the times also what may happen is that they just want to talk. What is therapy? The word therapy means it's the talking cure. That's all it is. And some of these people just want to talk and they don't want you to answer. And in fact, they don't want you to give advice. That's the last thing you want to do. They just want acknowledgement. And yeah, it can be draining. Kaylee says, Sam and I refer to the neighborhood center, or we held a community day recently with a mental health services to introduce them into the community. And that has made a big difference. Yes, being honest with people about being out of our depth. They appreciate the honesty. That's it, Sam. Kaylee, that's it. Yep. You be honest with them. And maybe that's something that your council can look at. The library. You have great services there. When you have children's story time, you have artworks, you have book signings. Well, you ask the council to put on something about getting a health professional in there, and you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed who will turn up. Maybe no one, which is a great thing. And maybe you get 10 people, which is also a great thing.
Can I throw to that, Gerald, just on
Please.
a state library perspective, mostly on the topic that was brought up on the grief and dealing with grief, or patrons that are dealing with grief. We have one of our library leaders that's working on a project around helping sort of the library service, so supporting staff and patrons who are, a lot of our communities are aging communities, so dealing with grief is a really common, whether it's returning books that a patron, their partner's died, or managing that, all the different services. We're actually looking at this library leader maybe putting together a bit of a program that they can share across the state with all the different library services. So that won't be coming till next year, so it doesn't help right now. But yeah, I think everything you touched on, being honest and saying, asking them, how can I help you, and that sort of thing, and just being a human being. I think we all do this daily in our jobs, of just trying to, just be a human is the key. But yeah, I just wanted to share that, keep a lookout. We will do some training sessions, hopefully in the future, on this sort of grief management in libraries. So
yeah, thank you, Carly. That's really important. I mean, you have got some amazing people that are working in your area. They've got skills and talents everywhere. You've got people who are, crochet experts, yoga people. You've got people who are working in communities and PCYC, and there are so many amazing people. You just need to be able to reach out to them. Speaking of PCYC, I did a session for PCYC. Wasn't that long ago? Probably February this year. Well, that's long ago. February of this year, and it was to invite the children or the kids who were going to the gyms, but were experiencing with a little bit of grief and hardship and not getting supported in their community. And 3 kids arrived, 3, and 170 parents arrived. The parents wanted it. And I was, wow, this was going to be a session for kids. And the parents wanted to know. And so the session was turned a little bit around, how to cope with my son who's not making friends at school, my daughter who's being bullied, social media who's affecting them. And I thought those would have been the issues for kids to bring up. But it was, I think with our aging population that we have, everything that you can do to help a community member is one step forward. And that's what we need. We need wins on the board to show people that council is doing the right thing. They're doing things well. We don't get it right all the time. Geez, we muck some things up, hey? You'd have to admit that. We muck some things up. We get it wrong. And then we do some really good things. So that's great. Thank you. Some people have said that sounds amazing. And somebody also writes, look forward to that, Kaylee. Kaylee and Kaylee, 2 different spellings. Yeah, excellent. Well, folks, I want to hang on. Kaylee says, keep an eye out for the PL newsletter and calendar. Won't be till next year. Good. Tracy says, thank you for your training. I have an appointment to head to. Please go. I will continue to keep the document on my wall and will invest in a fire extinguisher. Good move. Make sure you keep it next to your bed. You go home tonight with a fire extinguisher, your partner will say, what's that about? What's going on? Don't tell them. You have the means now. Well, folks, I want to thank you. Thank you for the time. It's been a good 3.5 hours. I've had a little bit of a break. I want to thank you. I will